Alright, anime fans, today let's cut the music, dim the cosmos, and talk about Saint Seiya Omega, the sequel that tried to pass the torch. And, well, dropped it halfway to the sanctuary. This isn't blind hate. This is why Omega exists, why it almost works, and why it still gets body slammed by classic Saint Seiya, Hades, and even Lost Canvas. Saint Seiya Omega walked in with shiny new armor, younger heroes, and a promise to modernize a legendary franchise. On paper, sounds badass. In execution, it felt like Saint Seiya put through a kid's anime filter, shaved of its raw edge, and told to behave. The cosmos was still there, but the fire was weaker. So Saint Seiya Omega centers on Koga, the new Pegasus Saint, raised by Sayori and haunted by Mars's attack. The story tries to mix legacy lore with a coming-of-age structure, focusing on friendship, growth, and destiny. The problem? The plot moves in safe, predictable lanes. Classic Saint Seiya thrived on desperation. Life or death battles, ticking clocks, sacrifices that hurt. Omega often feels padded, slower, and emotionally softer. The stakes are told to be high, but rarely felt. When the universe is at risk, you shouldn't feel like you're watching a Saturday morning adventure. The characters in this series are just not that memorable. This is where Omega takes its biggest hit. Koga is fine, but he's too clean, too shonen safe. Compare him to Seiya, who fought gods with broken bodies and pure rage. Koga grows, sure, but rarely feels unhinged or desperate enough to carry the Pegasus legacy. The supporting cast, Soma, Yuna, Haruto, are serviceable but lack the iconic presence of Shiryu, Hyuga, or Ikki. And Ikki himself? When he shows up, he still steals the scene, which kind of proves the problem. The old guard has more aura in 5 minutes than some Omega characters do in entire arcs. That's not nostalgia, that's bad character weight. Now let's talk about the action. Saint Seiya lives and dies by its battles, and Omega's fights are, well, inconsistent as hell. Some clashes are flashy and energetic, but honestly, a lot of them just lack the brutality that really defined the franchise. Classic Seiya fights were messy, bloody, and, true spiritual beatdowns. Omega's combat often feels lighter, more stylized, and, sometimes just toothless. When Saints get hit, you expect bones breaking and cosmos screaming. Instead, too many fights end without that holy shit moment. The danger feels reduced, and Saint Seiya without danger is just shiny armor punching. Now coming to the animation and music, well, visually, Omega isn't ugly, but it's honestly too modern for its own good. The cleaner art style strips away that mythic, harsh atmosphere that made the original feel legendary. The cloths look sleek, but they lose that heavy, sacred weight. Music? Well, it's decent, but honestly kind of forgettable. Classic Saint Seiya had tracks that just burned into your soul. Omega's soundtrack does its job, but rarely elevates scenes into iconic territory. You remember moments, but not melodies. The original classic music just felt sacred, and Omega just couldn't match it. Coming to the themes, Omega leans hard into themes of friendship, unity, and inherited will. That's fine, but Saint Seiya was never just about friendship. It was about sacrifice, suffering, and defying gods, even when you know you'll lose. Omega explains its themes clearly, sometimes too clearly, like it doesn't trust the audience to feel them. Older series let silence, pain, and failure do the talking. Omega talks more and bleeds less, because Saint Seiya is supposed to feel mythic, tragic, and dangerous. Omega feels safer, younger, and emotionally diluted. It respects the lore, but it doesn't embody the soul of the franchise. Compared to the original, Hades, or Lost Canvas, Omega lacks. The raw brutality is toned down a little. It lacks memorable, broken heroes. It lacks high-stakes desperation, that no one is safe energy. It's Saint Seiya with the volume turned down. Final thoughts. Saint Seiya Omega isn't trash. It has good ideas, a few solid arcs, and moments where the old Saint Seiya spirit flares up. For newer viewers, it's accessible. For veterans, it's a curiosity, a reminder of what Saint Seiya was and what it should never forget to be. Saint Seiya Omega tried to evolve the franchise, but in doing so, it lost some of its teeth. It shines, it swings, and sometimes it lands, but it rarely bleeds. And Saint Seiya without blood, pain, and cosmic defiance just isn't the same beast. The classics didn't ask for permission. Omega politely knocks, and that's why it'll never stand tall with the gods. Now drop your take in the comments, no fence sitting. Like it video if it hit, subscribe if you want more unapologetic anime takes. This is Reimagined Frames. See you in the next fight.